everybody, I'm the Solo Escaper. Today I'm going to be going over, giving my impressions, and a little bit of discussion about the new Boiling Tension reveals for Heroscape. Very excited about these. I think across the board, these are some really cool designs, really excited to get my hands on them. So I'm just going to jump right into it. First up, we are going to talk about Air Marshal Zed Nesbitt, the blimp hype. I absolutely love this mini. I am so excited to get my hands on him. I think, I'm kind of starting off with the most controversial one. There's been a lot of talk about, how much, this guy doesn't make sense, how our melee is supposed to engage with him, this, that, and the other. There's a lot of talk about vehicles in Heroscape just not really fitting with the theme or not fitting from a mechanical standpoint. And I do understand all that. I do. It's Age of Annihilation is very much going in directions that we haven't seen before in Heroscape. So if you don't like that, I do understand. But personally, I love it. I think the Vorids are super creative and fun, and I am so excited to see that big old blimp hovering over my board. So let's go into the figure itself. Unfortunately, I'm a lot more excited about the design than I am about the figure itself. I'm really hesitant, mostly about, right here we have a 140-point hero with only 18 survivability. Survivability is not something I came up with. It is just a quick way to estimate how good a figure is at surviving, which is just life times defense. Obviously, special powers are not taken into account. Obviously, a lot of things can go into how long your figure stays on the board, but survivability is just a good baseline for how tough is this figure. I have a future video planned where I'm going to go into some Heroscape statistics and talk about a little bit more about what goes into making survivability into something that I believe is a pretty valid way of thinking. To improve Nesbitt survivability, would you be better off increasing his life by 1 or his defense by 1? Normally, you are better off increasing the lower of the two numbers. So if right now he's at 18, right? 6 times 3. If you were to increase his life by 1, that would be 7 times 3 for 21. If you increased his defense by 1, so he'd be a 6 life, 4 defense, he would have 24 survivability, which is much, much better. But anyway, off topic a bit. That is my biggest concern with the Air Marshal, is that survivability is very low. Flying plus range is always really strong. Flying plus range plus 3 attack, that's nothing to sneeze at. That definitely means something. I wish he had stealth flying, but I think crash landing really negates the need for that in part. So let's read these special abilities. First up is Skyhook. After Air Marshal Zed Nesbitt finishes moving, if he used the flying special power during this movement, you may choose any number of friendly, small or medium Vorids that Nesbitt passed over this turn. Place those figures adjacent to Nesbitt. Figures moved with Skyhook never take leaving engagement attacks. So that sounds really cool, and I think it sounds a lot better on initial impressions than it winds up being in practice, because this is only small and medium Vorids, and only that he passed over. And he has flying, but his move is only 5. And this is a double-space figure, so you gotta have 2 spaces for him to end in, which means he's only skyhooking 3 figures max. And then you think about, I remember Skyhook from, The Dark Knight, and it's this really cool way to get somebody out of a tight spot. But for him, 5 move, he's not really a hero, and that would help with getting people out of a tight spot. Maybe, I'm sure it'll happen. I'm sure, one of your Vorids, let's say Decker moved into position and is about to get surrounded. Nesbitt can fly in there and grab him and move him a couple spaces away. That is the good thing about him being a double-space figure, is he has a lot of options as to where he places them. So, Skyhook is cool, but I don't know. It's really hard to judge this figure before playing with it. Crash Landing, special attack, range 1, attack 5. You can only use it if you flew this turn. All figures adjacent to Nesbitt are affected. Roll attack dice once for all affected figures. Each figure rolls defense separately. After using Crash Landing, place 1 wound marker on this army card, and Nesbitt cannot move normally for the rest of the round. So, attack 5 affecting multiple figures is really powerful. You think about, even in Age of Annihilation, Rockshot, Steward of Death, has to see 3 things die to charge up his Soul Fury to be that strong. And then when he uses it, he can't do it again. Whereas Nesbitt can do this every round and can be pretty consistent. But he does hurt himself, and he can't move after it. So, you know, it's tough to... It's tough. I think Ned has a lot... Or Zed. Zed has a lot of tools, but that survivability really worries me with him. I would have loved to have seen 1 more defense. I think that could have put him over the edge, especially for 140 points. If he were 110, 120, then this would make a bit more sense. But I wouldn't really want that either, because, you know, it's the blimp. It's meant to be the star of your army. It has so much presence. Renegade shared a picture from a convention they're at where they showed Nesbitt on the board, and it's just huge. It is just so imposing. So cool. But, yeah, so I'm looking forward to trying him out, but I don't really have high hopes for this one. Next up, let's talk about Imperator Kane, the other Vorid hero riding a vehicle. This guy has his all-terrain attack vehicle, and that's not even me making that up. That is canon, that this is an ATAV, which, as a Star Wars lover, is a lot of fun. 5 life, 4 defense. See, here's what I'm talking about right away. Imperator Kane has 1 more survivability than the blimp does, at 10 fewer points. So that's, that feels a little weird. 5 move, 5 range, 3 attack, 4 defense. Perfectly adequate. I would have liked to have seen 4 attack, I think, for that point level. But, beggars can't be choosers. His special ability, Stomp 8, once during his turn, at any point during his movement where he is on a space where he could end his movement. You may choose an adjacent, small or medium figure whose level is no more than 5 levels above Kane's level and roll the 20-sided die. If you roll 8 or higher, that figure receives 1 wound. Obviously, you see Stomp, you see any point during movement where he could end his movement. You think of Torkulna, and I think that's really that's not a great comparison in my mind. Yes, it's a similar ability, but as a figure, Imperator Kane really reminds me a lot more of Agent Carr, because you have a relatively weak range attack and a very powerful melee ability. So for Carr, he has his sword to roll 6 attack. For Kane, you have Stomp, which is a really good chance of auto-wounding adjacent figures. I think Kane will be really good at avoiding engagements with melee squads, because he can just stomp on them and then walk away and take a shot. I don't know when you'll use him, is the only thing. Kane is adding to the library of synergyless heroes, where you have a cool figure, much like Agent Carr. He's a cool figure that does some good stuff, but when are you really going to use him? How do you use him? How do you design an army to include him? For Imperator Kane, I really don't know yet. I'm going to have to do more thinking. It's weird having a ranged figure where his power only works in melee. So, do you rush in with him and try stomping and attacking and be more aggressive? Maybe, but I think you'll get him killed really quick that way, and for 130 points, that doesn't feel good. I think that 130 points is just too much for this guy. Stomp is a really cool ability, but you can only do it once per round. And, like, compare him to Night Primus Adelburn, who is 20 more points, granted, but Crushing Blow is guaranteed compared to Stomp being a roll, and he has incredible attack, and more survivability, and more move. So if you're going to be using Kane as a melee figure, it's hard to justify picking him over somebody like Adelburn for only 20 more points, or say Sergeant Drake. The new Sergeant Drake has a lot of tools, and he's only 5 more points than Kane, and I don't see people picking Kane over Drake. So, cool figure, a bit overpriced. I love the sculpt. I love the Voroids. I don't care. I love them. So, let's see. I'm excited to try him out, but Kane is probably, if I were making a tier list, he'd be the bottom of my tier list for this wave. Next up, we have Scavorith, Lord of Ruin, the next Eisenach. The Eisenach have been a ton of fun so far, so I'm excited to get another big, scary Eisenach hero. 7 life, 5 move, 1 range, 5 attack, 4 defense. 4 defense is good. That brings his survivability to 28, which is appropriate for a 185-point figure. I like those strong abilities. Double burst special attack, range 4, attack 3. He can attack 1 additional time. It looks a lot like a depowered quick release from Kamenala, doesn't it? Everybody loves Kamenala. I certainly do. He's one of my favorite from back in the day. Double burst, only having an attack of 3. He'll be good against squatties, but I don't really know. It's nice to have. It's nice to have. But I think you're going to want to use this guy in melee. I think you're going to want to be charging with him. Battle Surge. Battle Surge is a cool ability. It is a take on overextend attack. You can't use his special attack with it. But, I mean, the people with overextend attack don't have special attacks anyway, so that's not much of a difference. But critically, Scavorith doesn't take a wound unless he doesn't attack. And if you're using Battle Surge, you're doing it so you can get another attack in with this monster. So, I like him a lot. One thing that'll be really interesting to see is if you put Scavorith and Iron Lich together, and you're able to use 2 Surge markers in a single Scavorith activation. So, take your turn with Iron Lich, the injection to give Scavorith plus 2 move and attack, and then Battle Surge and do another injection. So that's 2 attacks of 7 is pretty scary. I think those 2 are going to be a really, really frightful force. Now, he's 185 points, and I generally play lower point games. I like 400. Putting all of the Eisenach together isn't really possible in that format. But if you go up to 600 points, you can use Scavorith, Iron Lich, Hellforge, the Necrotech Wraith Riders, and 1 squad of the Revnan Acolytes. And I think that's going to be a competitive 600-point army. If I ever go to an event, a 600-point event, I think that's well worth trying. Because I think it's got a lot of power and a lot of flexibility with Iron Lich's Puppeteer ability. So I'm looking forward to Scavorith. He really feels like Revna's dragon, since obviously Revna doesn't have a dragon yet. Let's try this big guy out. So looking forward to him. Next up, we are diving into the common figures. Across the board, the common figures are priced really cheaply in terms of point cost, not real world dollars. But in point cost, all of them are beneath 50 points, which is super cheap. The cynic in me says that so Renegade can encourage people to buy lots of extras. But the Heroscape player says, cool, that means I can have a bunch of these guys. And, I think all four of them, what really impresses me with this first batch of commons is just how complex they are. All four of them have really interesting abilities, especially for commons, that, like, they do something brand new. They do movement out of turn. They do, like, the Molten Crustaceans we're about to talk about. They create terrain. They come back from the dead. Just lots of really interesting abilities that I wouldn't have expected from Renegade's first batch of their original designs and their commons. So I love it. As a long time Heroscaper, I love seeing this kind of complexity. That's cool. So, I'm feeling very positively about these commons, but let's talk about them. First up, the Molten Crustaceans. 1 life. Remember, you gotta specify, because squads don't always have 1 life now. Move 5, range 1, attack 3, defense 3. That is Warriors of Ashra stats. 3 figures, similar point value. It's a good baseline. These guys are going to fold in range, of course, just like the Warriors do. But, 3 attacks of 3 is nothing to sneeze at. That's what Q9 does with Quaglix. So, let's... I think that's perfectly serviceable stats. Volcanic Carapace. I'm not going to read the whole thing, but when these guys die, they leave behind a tile of lava field. And that is... I think that is honestly even more exciting to me than when they drop a molten lava tile. When you roll that 19 or higher, that 10% chance to place a molten lava tile, basically you're just deleting that tile from the board, right? I mean, your crabs can walk through it, but for all intents and purposes, that tile is gone. Nobody's going to take it again. Which isn't super interesting to me, and because it's only 10%, bringing other units that can shove your opponent into the lava, I don't know. That feels like Disneyland. I don't see that happening. Even if you did have a higher chance of placing the molten lava, I just don't. That doesn't feel worth it to me. But which leads me to my main point, that the lava field tile is super, super interesting. Because every time one of your crustaceans dies, to a normal attack or leaving engagement, not special. That's important. Anytime one of your crabs dies, they place a lava field tile. You place a little bit of high ground that your opponent is hesitant to take. Especially if, like, the crustaceans die late in the round, and your opponent has a chance to hop up there, but, well, if they do, they gotta roll for that lava field damage. And that's a scary thought. So I think that these guys are going to be really interesting and fun to mess around with. I don't know how competitive they'll be, but they'll sure be a lot of fun. I am looking forward to trying these guys with the Firestorm build. Bringing them with Karak the Elementalist and a bunch of fire elementals, and just giving that army a few more bodies and a little bit more flexibility. I think that'll be a lot of fun. So these are 5 points more expensive, but you get 2 more bodies and Volcanic Carapace. I think that's a worthwhile try. So, I feel kind of similarly to this as I do about a couple of them that it's just really hard to judge. One thing I want to point out is if you look on the card, they have 2 individual line of sight points for each eye stalk, and that's just adorable. So, love these guys. My buddy is so excited about them. He thinks they're ridiculous and adorable, and I can't help but agree with him. Next up, here we go. My darlings, my love, my life, the Tanuki Tricksters. I love these guys. These are far and away the unit I'm most excited for. I am happy to be getting another 2-man squad. They have incredibly solid stats for 45 points, especially. I think they have great abilities. I am psyched. So let's get right into it. Life of 1, move 6, range 4, attack 3, defense 4. That's something, man. That's Attack 3 on range. True, it's only a range of 4, but attack 3 on range, that's impressive. Let me make another comparison to Kaminawa. You get 2 of these guys on height, which isn't hard to do with 6 move and Phantom Walk. Get them on height, and you're attacking 2 attacks at 4 with range of 4. That's quick release. And if they're not on height, well, then that's double burst from Scavorith, you know? If that's good enough for them, it's sure as heck good enough for this 45-point common squad. So very impressed with the stat line. I think that 4 defense is really what set me over the edge. That just seems like... almost seems like a typo. For 45 points, them having 4 defense, that's really impressive. Now, they are only a 2-man squad, and I think, you know, if these guys were 3 Tricksters for, say, 70, I wouldn't have blinked. Like, they'd probably be a lot better. But, I don't know. There are not a lot of 2-man squads in Heroscape. And so I'm really excited to get another one and try them out. So let's talk about these abilities. Nagawasa 9. Before attacking, you may choose an adjacent enemy small or medium figure and roll a 20-sider. If you roll a 9 or higher, you may move the chosen figure 1 space. And it doesn't say 1 same level space. It doesn't say don't push them into lava. It doesn't say don't jump them off a cliff. It just says move the chosen figure 1 space. Super, super cool. Run up onto high ground, throw your opponent off it, and shoot down on him. That's a really fun, cool ability. Next up, Tanuki Aruki. After revealing an order marker on this armory card and taking a turn with them, you may move up to 2 small or medium, Vorid, or Ninja figures you control that did not move this turn up to 3 spaces each. I love that or Ninja line, because that shows me that Renegade is looking at the past and wanting to synergize with the old stuff just as much as the new. Now, granted, you do have Shiori. The new version of Shiori is a ninja that can work with these guys in AoA times. But I love to see somebody working with the ninjas. The ninjas were of the Northern Wind, were my favorite squad back in the day. Everybody loves Isamu, and having somebody that can synergize with them a bit is really cool. Now, I play a lot of VC Delta. VC Delta is how I do basically all of my Heroscape. And in Valhalla Customs, you have Kantono Daishi, who is the Kato Katsuro of the ninja. He can command them, he can take turns with them. Really cool figure. And I think that the Tanukis don't particularly work well with him. Taking a turn with the Tanukis with Kantano's turn means they can't use Tanuki Aruki, and I think you miss out on a lot without doing that. So I don't think they're really worth bringing with him. But they're a great discount replacement for him. If you're not using VC, I think that people are really underselling the value of Tanuki Aruki and being able to move 2 figures 3 spaces each every time you take a turn with these guys. So I'm looking forward to running, 2 or 4 of these guys, if I can afford it, in an army, having them chase each other around, throw down Nagawaza. I just think they are such a unique design. They have a lot of tools that, again, range of 4, defense of 4 for 45 points. That's crazy. I will hear nothing against these guys. This is by far the figure of the wave I'm most excited about. Long live the Tanuki Tricksters. I cannot wait to get them in my army. But we'll move on. Next up, the Revnan Acolytes. First impressions for the Acolytes was pretty weak. I was pretty disappointed because, we had all seen the Acolyte with the bone wings, and we thought, okay, cool, Revna is already getting her Kyrie squad, but that was not the case. So that was a disappointment. And then I saw those stats, 5122. Ooh, that's weak. Especially for only 3 figures. That is really weak. Okay, 40 points, that's not so bad. But then you read these abilities, and you realize what the Revnan Acolytes are. And what they are is a filler squad that doesn't need order markers to get value out of. Hero Worship. While a hero you control who follows Revnan attacks with a normal attack or defends against anything, it doesn't care how it's defending. It attacks with a normal attack or defends. If that hero is adjacent to one or more Revnan Acolytes you control, you may reroll 1 die. That's really strong. That is the equivalent of +1 attack and defense. Not exactly, but similar. So that's really strong. And then, but, even with that, would these guys be using? Probably not. But Risen by Revnan. At the start of each round, before placing order markers, you may place one of your destroyed Revnan Acolytes onto an empty space adjacent to a hero you control who follows Revnan. That's crazy. That is why the Revnan Acolytes, you don't need to worry about these guys. You don't need to worry about putting order markers on them. I think your first turn of the game should be killing all your Acolytes. I think that they are going to be a really amazing filler unit for any army that has a Revnan hero, because they're so cheap. You get 3 of them. They come back for free every single round. And also, there was a ruling that even if all 3 are dead, that Risen by Revnan ability is still in effect. So even if they're all dead, you are getting them back at the beginning of every single round. That's really impressive. I think you don't need a lot of these to get value out of them either. Throw a squad of Acolytes into any army you're using with 2 or more Revnan heroes, and I think they will carry their weight and really help your hero have some more survivability, some more punch. I mentioned earlier that 595 technically points Ice Neck army. I think that having a squad of Acolytes in there will help a lot. Feed them to Manducore. Give Scavorith extra attack. Give Iron Lich extra attack. I don't know, man. I think 40 points is a steal for how much these guys offer. So, once again, I'm excited about this new stuff. I actually don't have a whole lot to say for these guys comparatively. So we'll go ahead and move on to Grave Grim. Grave Grim. Now, this is the one on first impression when I was watching Renegade Con was my most excited. Even more than Tanuki Tricksters. I hesitate to say, because I was just speaking to my brother about how much I wished for more undead synergies. And here we go with Grave Grim with Guide of the Dead. I think Grave Grim is an excellent figure. I'm excited to have more common heroes from Official Scape. I think common heroes are super interesting, so I'm excited to get them. And I'm excited about these stats. 2 life for a common hero. That's new. Move 6, range 1, attack 4, defense 4. That 2 life matters. Think about the Frost Claws, how hard it is to kill one of those guys. Grave Grim is a Frost Claw with +1 attack. I think that's worth thinking about. 40 points. If it was just the stats, that might be a little rough. The stats are a Dumatef guard, and we all know the Dumatef doesn't do much. But they are not just their stats. I'm actually going to skip ahead to Harrowing Presence first, because I think it's the one that a bit less interesting. Harrowing Presence. When an opponent rolls a 20-sider for a special power in one of their army cards, if one of that card's figures are within 3 spaces of a figure you control with a Harrowing Presence special power, they must subtract 3 from the roll. That's cool. That is really, really cool. Think about Mind Shackle. Think about any insta-kill ability. Think about like the Bolt of Witherwood from Aslaga. The Grave Grim can get close with that 6 move and effectively turn those abilities off. That's really cool. I don't think there is an ability in Classic Scape that subtracts from your opponent's D20 rolls, so that's really neat. But it is inherently a nice bonus. It's not going to come into play every game. So, can't say too much about Harrowing Presence, but it's nice to have, and it's a really cool thematic ability. But their other ability, Guide of the Dead. Now, this is where that undead synergy came in that I am so excited about. After revealing an order marker on, and before taking a turn with a Grave Grim, you may move up to 6 small, medium, or large undead or Icenic figures you control up to 3 spaces each. So let's talk about that. Let's talk about undead armies. Let's talk about where Grave Grim will find a home, and that's everywhere. Except for Icenic. The Icenic, right now, the only smaller mediums are the Wraith Riders, and first off, they're unique, so you're not going to have 6 of them. And second off, they already have a move of 8 or maybe sometimes 10 with Iron Lich, so they don't really need an extra 3. So that's kind of ruled out. Then let's talk about the Revnan Acolytes. They're decent, but you're probably not going to have 6 of them either, and you don't really need to move them. So let's think about Classic and VC. That's where it really shines. I think the zombies of Morandan, meh. I think, they may or may not benefit from it. I think it would be hard to justify moving 6 Zombies of Morandan with Guide of the Dead when you could just take a turn with the zombies and horde movement. But when you pull in VC, you have the Zombie Hulk, who is large, and then you start moving up several Zombies of Morandan and a couple Zombie Hulks, and you're moving your Grave Grim in position to harrow one of your opponent's D20s. Okay, now we're getting interesting. Or we think about the Thralls from VC. Getting to move Nicholas and 5 of his Thralls, 3 spaces each. That's something. That's some really good early development. And also, back to Classic for a second. I think any figure with Stealth Flying or Phantom Walk loves it. I think the Shades of Bleakwood love it, because you might be able to push one that extra couple spaces closer to an enemy unique hero to try that Soul Devour. That's the biggest weakness with them, is they have to be adjacent at the start of their turn to do it. Well, just maybe Grave Grim can get them there. It's only 3 move, but Stealth Flying, 3 move goes a long way. I think the Phantom Knights love it too. Those guys are already fast, and being able to move 6 of them instead of just 3, that's really impressive. The army I most want to talk about with Grave Grim, though, and I love how much synergy it has, it almost feels designed for this VC figure, is the Crypt Guardian. So, if you're unfamiliar, Crypt Guardian is a mummy, an uncommon hero that was designed to make Sudema more effective. He is a guard with just 4 move, range 1, attack 3, defense 3, 4 life. Doesn't look very powerful, but has some amazing abilities. When he is engaged to an enemy figure, Sudema's roll for Stare of Stone is made easier, and he has Royal Escort, which allows a Crypt Guardian to bond with Queen Sudema or another guard you control. So the biggest downside to the Crypt Guardians is how slow they are. You can only move 2 at a time, or 1 in Sudema, and they only have move of 4. Sure, you can bring Warden 816, but that's spending a lot of points for that 1 extra move, and, that feels bad. So the Grave Grim slides into that army amazingly well. Suddenly, you can move all of your mummies up at once, along with Sudema, 3 spaces each. 3 spaces isn't a whole lot, but it's almost as much as their base move of 4. And Grave Grim is a guard, so that's an option. You wouldn't be able to Guide of the Dead, but a Crypt Guardian can bond with Grave Grim. So that's an exciting option too. And both of them play with D20 powers of other figures. There's a lot going on with Grave Grim and the mummies. and I am super excited to try them together. So after the Tanukis, the Grave Grim is what I'm most excited about for this wave, just because of, I think they will really power up that mummy army, and that's an army I enjoy quite a lot. It's not terribly effective, but I don't know. I last tried them out with Queen Kyrie because she's a queen too, and it just didn't work. Queen Kyrie. I wish she were better, but that's a discussion for a different video. So Grave Grim, super cool. Before we close out for the day, let's talk about these promos. First up is Decker the Burrowbreaker. And here's my hot take of the video. This guy is amazing. This guy is so dang good. Kind of blows my mind how good he is for 65 points. Now, 65 points, that's what I'm saying. He is good for 65 points. So let's go through his stats, talk about these abilities, and talk about why I think he's such a deal. 5 life, 5 move, range 1, 3 attack, 4 defense. So right here you have a little mole with survivability of 20. 20 survivability with a point cost of only 65 is unheard of. He is tied for the 3rd highest survivability among any hero in Classic under 100 points. He is tied. Empress Kyova and Konkan, who both cost significantly more than him, are at 20. And he's just below Sir Hawthorne at 24 and Nigoxa at 30. And that's just heroes under 100 points. In VC, for under 100 points, that 20 survivability is about the best you're going to get. It's better than Arkdos. It's better than Pell the Hill Giant. It's tied with Major J15, Ritaxi, Count Raymond, Deltacron. He is incredibly tough for that 65 points. So this guy will survive so much longer than his point cost would tell you. Then you look at his abilities. He has 2 different movement replacement abilities, which I think is really neat. Underground movement comes from the Earth Elementals, so it gives him a lot more flexibility for how he moves around, gives him pseudo-flying, kind of the opposite of flying, but does a similar thing. It's not stealth underground movement, it's not Ashidulu, but it is something. So I'm excited to see that. And Drill Drive special attack. This is the only place where I hesitate with him a little bit. I think his underground movement and his stats are very competitive for 65 points. Drill Drive is going to be difficult to set up, is my only criticism with this guy. Because instead of moving and attacking normally, you may move him to 5 spaces in a straight line. So unlike Fireline or Awasha's Twister, you don't get to move and then create that attack line. He starts his turn and he goes. So that's gonna be tough to set up. I don't think you're gonna be getting a lot of multi-kills with Drill Drive. But he's 65 points. And he has a special attack at 65 points. And his special attack lets him roll 4 attack dice at 65 points. Freaking incredible. So my very favorite hero from back in the day is Johnny Shotgun Sullivan. I love him to death. I know James Murphy is basically just plain better, but I don't care because Johnny Shotgun is my boy. I love his sculpt. He has a special attack that can wipe out groups of weak squaddies. Whenever I use Johnny Shotgun, he kills more than his points. And, Decker is a heck of a lot more durable. He has a better base attack. He has better maneuverability with underground movement. It's hard to justify Johnny over this guy. Once again, we'll talk about synergyless heroes. I think synergyless heroes are much better suited to lower point costs because you're not going to base a whole army around them. That's the problem with Kane. Is I would much rather have Decker and Johnny. That's exactly 130. Yeah. If you were to offer me Imperator Kane or both Johnny Shotgun and Decker the Burrowbreaker. That's no question. I love these guys. I love both of these guys. And I've been ranting about this guy for a while. He is really, really good. And I'm excited to try him out. We're going to wind up having 4 Vorid champions once all of these releases come out. So I'm really hoping for a Vorid champion bonding figure somewhere along the way. I think that'll turn the Vorids from fun and cute and interesting to competitive. So really looking forward to that. And I think that when that army comes out, when we have that bonding squad, Decker's going to be an auto include. So last but certainly not least, here we go. Raelin, the Kyrie Warrior version 4.0. 6 life, 6 move, 1 range, 3 attack, 3 defense, 105 points. Meh. I would have liked to have seen one more attack or defense. I think one more attack would have really put this Raelin over the top. But it's hard to argue with, and these abilities are exciting. Flying, of course. Unyielding. Other players cannot gain control of, move, or take turns with Raelin. So, well, there we go. Perfect counter to my Tanukis. They can't move her. They can't Nagawasa Raelin. You can't chain grab her. You can't grapple grab her. You can't do nothing. So that's cool. I think it has a lot more viability in Age of Annihilation than it would have back in the day. So but just because there are a lot more movement abilities, which is cool. I like it. That's something that they didn't really explore all that much in Classic. So that's cool. Whirlwind Assault is back from Swarm of the Morrow. She can attack anybody next to her. Anybody and everybody. And then Vengeful Swoop. Old Raelin has stopped with the auras, and now she's just ready to throw hands. Once per turn, after another figure you control within 4 clear sight spaces of Raelin defends against a normal attack, only normal, from an enemy figure. If they received 1 or more wounds, you may place Raelin on an unoccupied space adjacent to the attacking figure and roll the d20. If you roll 8 or higher, that figure receives a wound, and she does not take leave engagement attacks when moved by Vengeful Swoop. First thought, that is super, super cool. Second thought, wait a minute. That makes me a little nervous. Third thought, is this bait? And I think it's bait, guys. I think new players are going to use Vengeful Swoop and then be shocked and cry about what the heck happened. Why is Raelin dead already? I think she's going to get herself into trouble. Here's the thing with Vengeful Swoop. Your opponent decides when it activates. You don't choose. So, like, if they... I just imagine the Iron Lich, her fighting the Ice Neck army. Iron Lich walks up, shoots one of your bears, deals damage. Raelin comes up. Vengeful Swoop deals the damage on Iron Lich. That's great. That's the core of your opponent's army, dealing with damage to it. Excellent work. But then here comes Scavorith with the Puppeteer. Scavorith hits Raelin, and then uses Battle Surge, uses some of the Iron Lich's injection, hits her again. I think that Vengeful Swoop is going to pull Raelin into danger a lot. And that's why, ultimately, I think that it is very rarely going to be suitable for using it against range. And that's a shame, because my first time reading this, that was my immediate thought. I'm like, oh, holy crap, when my opponent tries to snipe me with a Krav Maga, Raelin can just teleport over there, get right into it, and take them all out. Can she, though? Because, again, your opponent decides when they're attacking figures within 4 clear sight spaces of Raelin. And the main question, when do you put order markers on her? Because she doesn't quite have the power to be in your front line. So you're going to be wanting to attack with your squads, developing other figures. Most Raelins were used to setting them up and then letting everybody play in their aura. This Raelin isn't going to work that way. At least not against range. Because you're going to have to, once once she takes some revenge on the particular Krav Maga agent that took that pot shot, she's going to need to clean them up. And are you going to have an order marker ready on her to do that? Is your opponent going to just swarm her before you get a chance? So I think that Vengeful Swoop is a really cool ability, but you may as well consider it against a normal attack from an adjacent enemy figure. I do not think she is appropriate at all to send after enemy range that way. She doesn't have the attack to do it, and you're not going to be putting order markers on her anyway. So treat her. Remember that she's Raelin. Keep her aura by your team. Don't let your opponent get her away from there. So really cool. I love the sculpt. I love the art. I love the idea of Raelin's angry now. It reminds me of a Chroma Angel of Wrath from Magic the Gathering. I've mentioned Star Wars and Magic in this video, and I'm talking about Heroscape. You can see how nerdy I am. Really cool. I'm excited to get my hands on her whenever that's possible. But overall, just be careful with her. That Vengeful Swoop, that is bait. And if you're a new player and you are and you act rashly and decide to swoop, just remember that it says may. You may place Raelin on a space adjacent to the attacking figure. That's all I have to say on that matter. So that is it. That is the extent of the Boiling Tension reveals. I want to thank you all so much for watching. I have a lot of plans for this channel. Talking more about Heroscape. I have a bunch of video ideas that I hope to do sooner rather than later. So please consider liking and subscribing. And thank you so much for watching.